Okay, join me on page 374 in your science textbook. How does flowing water affect a watershed? As rain and melting snow run downhill, they carry water and sediment that eventually end up in a river, a marsh, a lake, or an ocean. A watershed is the area from which water is drained, or the region that contributes water to a river or a river system. Each stream, pond, or lake has its own watershed. A watershed for a stream may be as small as only a few acres in area. And if you look up at your screen, this is an example of a watershed. All of this area contributes to this river. Okay. Continuing in your text. Just as creeks drain into rivers, each smaller watershed drains into a larger watershed, so that a major river may have a watershed with an area of thousands or even millions of square miles. For example, California's Santa Ana River watershed has an area of more than 5,250 square kilometers. This area includes much of Orange County, part of Riverside County, part of San Bernardino County, and a small part of Los Angeles County. In a watershed, the flow of water and the resulting erosion and deposition vary with the seasons. For example, in the spring, melting snows and spring rains often carry huge amounts of water and sediment away to streams and rivers. Then the streams and rivers may overflow their banks and flood the surrounding areas, depositing sediment on their floodplains. In many places, less rain falls in the dry months of summer, so the watersheds have less water. The rivers slow and become more shallow, depositing their sediment along their banks or at their mouths. This condition may change if a large thunderstorm or a hurricane passes through. Heavy rainfalls can result in a greater amount of weathering, erosion, and deposition in a short period of time. Year after year, these natural and reoccurring patterns reshape the landscape. Erosion caused by heavy rains and flooding can carve a deep V-shaped valley known as an arroyo. An arroyo is a small, water-carved channel with steep banks that is located in a dry area. Arroyos are dry most of the time because of the infrequent rainfall, but they fill with water either seasonally or after a single heavy rainstorm. They run through deserts or other dry regions. For example, the Arroyo Seco runs from the San Gabriel Mountains to the Los Angeles River and passes through the cities of Pasadena and Los Angeles. Sometimes flooding causes riverbanks to collapse. A stream may change its course, altering the landscape. Floods and the resulting changes often take place year after year in naturally recurring patterns. In this way, the shape of the land and the bodies of water in a watershed change over time. Looking at the bottom of 375, an Oxbow Lake. The meanders change position over time by eroding sideways and slightly downstream, slowly moving down the river valley. The narrow neck of land between the two banks is finally cut through, and a cutoff is formed. An Oxbow Lake is a portion of a stream channel that is cut off from the rest of the stream by erosion. Okay, turning the page onto page 376. What are the characteristics of a river's mouth? Eventually, all rivers flow into a larger body of water, such as a lake or an ocean. As a river enters a lake or an ocean, its speed slows abruptly. The river deposits the rest of its sediment at its mouth. The triangular-shaped deposit of soil particles that forms where the stream enters the larger body of water is called a delta. A delta forms as sediment at the river's mouth builds up, blocking the river's channel. The channel shifts its course to pass on either side of this blockage, creating one or more new channels. After a time, these channels become blocked, and the channels shift again. Over time, the deposits often take on a shape that looks like the Greek letter delta, for which the delta is named. Sometimes a stream enters a plain or a flat valley. The sediment it drops at its mouth takes on a fan shape similar to a delta. The fan-shaped land deposits at the mouth of a stream are known as alluvial deposits. When a river flows into an ocean, an estuary may develop. In an estuary, a freshwater river meets the saltwater ocean, creating an important habitat that contains a mixture of freshwater and saltwater. Morro Bay and the San Francisco estuary are two examples of estuaries in California, and we'll be visiting the Morro Bay estuary when we go to Camp Keep. All right, thank you for listening and following along. Continue on your science lesson.